Hey there gamers, DreamcastGuy here, and today we're talking about PlayStation because Sony just released a big financial report about the future of the PlayStation 5 and kind of how stuff is going, and it's kind of bleak. Now, I'm not going to say that Sony is failing or that the PlayStation brand is underwater. PlayStation is still selling tens of millions of PS5s, they're still getting great third-party support, but this new big talk, this financial deep dive, kind of reveals the fact that nobody is buying the games that PlayStation themselves is making, and it's such a weird problem that I want to discuss. I hope you're having a great day, and if you could, please give this video a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Now we're going to begin with this very interesting factoid, which is the fact that Astro Bot has sold 1.5 million copies. This feels, to me, extremely low. Astro Bot is a fantastic game. It's something I've platinumed. I put about 30 hours into it. It got a ton of 10 out of 10s. It had an incredibly high Metacritic, but the fact that it only sold 1.5 million copies feels so low, especially for the quality of it. Now, couple that with the fact that they have now confirmed the PlayStation 5 has sold over 65 million units as of the end of September. This feels like a huge, huge leap. It feels like the PlayStation 5 continues to kill it. It's wild to think about the fact that I've said this in the past, but I feel like the biggest boon to Sony right now is that a lot of people consider PlayStation as the default gaming platform. Like sometimes people get butthurt when I say that, but the numbers themselves, I feel like, reflect that. Like, yeah, some people game on Nintendo Switch or people game on Xbox or PC or whatever, but when it comes to like casual gamers, the big bulk of random people that just walk into GameStop and pick up a copy of Assassin's Creed for $5 or whatever, those kind of people are buying PlayStation 5s hand over fist, and it's wild to see that. But when I just think of these two numbers together, the fact that they've sold 65 million PlayStation 5s, but only sold 1.5 million copies of Astro Bot, that feels so bizarre. That attach rate is so teeny tiny. They did confirm that Ghost of Tsushima continues to sell. The fact that Ghost of Tsushima has now sold over 13 million copies, that is definitely a well-earned success. Now, I'm glad that Pio here decided to put these two numbers right next to each other because some people who are less connected to the industry, you probably don't know this, but Ghost of Tsushima and Astro Bot are actually much, much, much tinier Sony projects. These are actually two games that were extremely low-budget, cheap, AA games, essentially. I think both of these had a budget of around 50 million, so the fact that they've already turned a profit, Ghost of Tsushima was pretty much instantly profitable, and that's why we're getting such a big budget sequel with Ghost of Yoti? I don't know how to pronounce it, but Astro Bot, even with that 1.5 million of sales, it's already profitable. Now, here's the two parts of it that are extremely strange, and we're going to talk about the reactions to it. PlayStation has said that it has 116 million active users, which means that, just doing some napkin math, about 40% of all total PlayStation game time is still being done on PlayStation 4. That's still very baffling to it, but we're going to go over here to the PlayStation 5 Reddit because somebody pointed out one of the slides and something it says that is truly baffling to me, which is this. During the Q&A, they showed a slide that showed a wild stat. 37% of people that purchased Astro Bot had not purchased any other first-party game in the past 2 years. Truly let that sink in. Astro Bot, a game that is not very successful in a lot of circumstances, I think you would consider it almost a lower selling title. The fact that it sold to an audience that has not bought any other first-party games in 2 years, this is a mind-blowing statistic. People are saying, like, that is a fascinating statistic. It's interesting because it suggests that Sony's first-party strategy is forgetting people. In business terms, that means they're not fully capitalizing on the PlayStation 5's install base. This is a brilliant point. This is something that I actually think we're going to go into it more here for the rest of the video, including Concord and stuff. Sony is chasing trends that nobody cares for them to chase. I mean, their big pivot towards live service games, this constant back-to-back remakes and remasters and stuff, I do think they're starting to hit a strange point where in their effort to make games that are approachable to everybody, they're making stuff that interests nobody. What causes this type of consumer who doesn't buy any first-party games in 2 years to pick up Astro Bot specifically? I mean, it's a high-quality game, but Sony's other first-party stuff are not exactly low quality either. Was it because they're accessible, the high review scores? Was it a fun one-off? Or does it demonstrate a demand for platformers in general? Now, I'm going to take this in a direction that I feel like other people don't have, which is that I almost feel like the issue is the lack of bulk PlayStation 5 exclusive stuff made by Sony. Like, maybe it's just that I have a long memory and the fact that I played so much PlayStation 4, but it almost feels like when game consoles are the most successful with first-party releases is when you get that ball rolling. It's the momentum rule, right? Which is that if you're releasing stuff, even if it is lower budget or lower reviewed, when you're releasing stuff like Infamous Second Son, The Order 1886, the Twisted Metal reboot, when you're releasing games back to back, like they did with the PlayStation 3, late PlayStation 3 generation, and a lot of the PlayStation 4 generation, back to back games, it gets people so not only are they excited to buy stuff, but they want to join the ecosystem. They want to talk to their friends. They want to brag about it. They want to post screenshots. They want to get conversation going and be hyped for that next game. I feel like the biggest problem with the PlayStation 5 is that since the games are so scattered out, like this year, we got 2 new PlayStation games, Concord, which is dead, and Astro Bot. So in total, if you're a person that bought a PlayStation 5 to see what Sony is doing with the system that they themselves has made, there's not a lot of hype. And I would definitely say there's pretty much no momentum. I feel like the big problem with PlayStation right now is that you get a game, you get a lot of exclusives, right? But they're all second party, third party. It's all stuff like Helldivers, which is not made by PlayStation, but was supported by PlayStation and is exclusive to PlayStation, or Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which I was up all night playing on my PlayStation 5 Pro. God, it looks good. But Sony is not really doing anything with the platform, and I just feel like that is reflecting in low sales, even when they do end up releasing good games. I feel like they need to find some way to make more Astro Bot-sized projects, meaning mid-tier stuff, tinier budget, quicker development cycles. In fact, I said this when I reviewed Astro Bot, but I feel like we get an Astro Bot every 2 years. I feel like that would be a huge success story for PlayStation. Now, the other part of this that a lot of people are discussing are that Sony's president and CFO, Hiroki Totoki, I'm so bad at Japanese names, I apologize, says PlayStation needs to have a more detailed checks and gates, such as more user tests to prevent situations like Concord ever happening again. Now, this is a translation by Genki, I think, but it's an interesting quote here. He says, "We need to repeat those gates more so that we could have caught and determined whether they will be accepted by the users or not. We need to be more and get more information that will enable us to make more sound decisions. Looking back on the past, I think we need to get back to basics and really make it stronger." Now, some people are taking this in 2 separate directions. Some people are saying that, okay, if they're going to do more live service games, they got to get a lot more data. That's why they're trying to get these PlayStation logins on Steam and stuff like that. They're trying to get the data as to what people are playing the most so they can give the users what they want. But I almost take this as a sign of panic. Maybe I'm misreading it, but it does sound to me a bit like the heads of PlayStation, the people at the tippy top, are kind of saying, maybe we don't fully get it. We see the games that sell, we have all the back-end data, so we can see the projects that have the most play hours, the most profitability, the most microtransactions, a bunch of little tiny important details that are on the business side of it. Like, look, you and I we just want to play fun games, right? We just want to have the coolest game for the lowest price with the most cool, extra, quirky stuff so we can platinum it and move on. But from a business perspective, I feel like Sony is just poring over that data and kind of extrapolating the wrong conclusions. I think they see the success of games as a service as the only possible avenue. And I still feel like I want Sony to figure out a way, for better or for worse, to keep supporting the IP that we already love. Give us another Killzone in some variety. Give us, I don't know, Last of Us Part 3. Give us more SOCOM. Give us more greatness, right? I am in a spot where I love gaming on PlayStation. It's still one of my favorite spots to play. I still play a lot on my Nintendo Switch. I still play a lot on my PC, but the ecosystem of PlayStation is still my favorite place to game personally. I like the controller, I like trophies, I like that all my friends are on the platform, right? But the lack of first-party games, I think, is starting to create a weird drought that even PlayStation is starting to say, okay, we can't just keep saying there will be another live service game next year. That's not going to get hype. That's not going to get interest. That's not going to get people playing or buying or spending. Give us the stories. Give us those cool, epic adventures that made PlayStation great. But these have just been some off-the-cuff thoughts. How do you feel about this entire investor report? Does it really matter? Tell me your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, subscribe if you haven't already, and please keep dreaming. Oh my god, I'm so glad I got my PlayStation 5 Pro for cheap. I mentioned this in my PlayStation 5 Pro review, but I got my PlayStation 5 Pro for $300, and I gotta say, for a $300 console, it's really good. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.